Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Mark Angelides, Sarah Cowgill, Jim Fight, and Jeff Charles. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On a beautiful Texas day, the small community of Uvalde was forever shattered. One disturbed young man, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a path of destruction, leaving 19 children and 2 teachers dead. Parents and residents demanded action. Law enforcement held the perimeter, and now all we're left with is questions. Did law enforcement act accordingly? Could this have been prevented? Sarah, where do we even start on this one?
Oh, this is a tough one. And I think you have to start at the very beginning. I mean, first of all, you need to know the background of the shooter. The second thing you need to know is where was, the time frame. I know Jim covered this very well, the whole time frame of the shooting incident itself. And you've got to understand that when the announcements go out on social media that there's an active shooter, people are showing up at that school to get their kids. And it erupted in a screaming match and parents demanding that somebody do something, and law enforcement holding them back from the perimeter to where they wanted to go try and get those kids out of that school. So I don't know where it all went wrong, but from the start, it seems like there was just missteps made.
Jim, of course, this means they're coming after the firearms. So you've written extensively about this. Why do they keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Sorry to be corny, but that's just the bottom line here.
No, I mean that's what it is. I don't. All it is to push the agenda. That's all it is. We have these measures like universal background checks, the red flag laws, of course, assault weapons bans. And after what President Biden said the other day, possibly there may be something in the works banning 9mm, which apparently, in case any of you were uninformed, if you get shot in the chest with a 9mm, your lung can be blown entirely out of your body, according to the president, not actual science. But
what does Anthony Fauci say?
Where does he get this stuff? Where does he?
You know what? He hasn't weighed in yet.
He makes it up as he goes. He doesn't.
Books.
He's not consulting expert. He's just talking. That's all he's doing.
Well, apparently he did consult
one of his 5-year-old
25 years ago, but that's neither here nor there. The point is.
Well, wait a minute. He's also saying, Jim, that 9mm are high caliber.
Yeah, he just made that up. I mean, I guess contextually, maybe we could say he means like a large caliber or large bore pistol round, which I don't think anyone would consider a 9mm that, but
he means higher than 8mm. That's his definition. It's higher than a 7, and it's higher than an 8. And I've got 6 other numbers I can give you.
Mark. It has a higher bullet diameter, which is what that means. But no, it's just a matter of, look, it's the old saying, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. So, I mean, these things are on standby. A lot of times they're completely unrelated. Like how, by the way, how would universal background checks have stopped a school shooting in which the shooter passed a background check to get his gun? How would any of that, red flag laws or anything, stop a school shooting or any sort of shooting where the shooter killed someone and stole their gun? It's not about helping people or saving lives. It's about pushing the agenda. And, it's a crisis of opportunity.
I still think the big questions on this particular massacre, this incident, these little kids and a big kid taking them all out and a couple of teachers, I still think that there's more to it than a gun issue. And I don't understand why there's not a lot of different. There was procedural issues, and I'm going to harp on this until this whole thing is solved and looked into, but there had to be procedural issues that nobody had the right information. They didn't even know until the Border Patrol agent who was off duty, who knew where his wife was, a different wing of that school, and knew that they could get those kids out safely and evacuate them. Why didn't anybody else on the ground know that? Why did it take that long for that man to show up off duty and talked to authorities and then law enforcement said, yeah, that's a good idea. How does that work?
Well, this is a series of things that have gone wrong, right, Jeff? I mean, you've got everybody hanging out outside, waiting for the maintenance man to come up with a key. You've got parents being tased and trying to get in there. It's a holy mess. And the answer cannot be, we got to get rid of more guns in America. I mean, that's just doesn't seem like that's going to solve the problem here.
No, it's not. But it's like Jim said. I mean, when they see these things happen, their objective is to make it harder for folks like us to obtain firearms. That's their only goal here. But with this whole thing, this was a total breakdown. And there are so many conflicting details. I mean, the chief of police came out and said, oh, they thought it was just a barricade situation. They didn't believe that it was an active shooter situation at that point, even though there were officers who went in, got shot at, and came back out. Even though there were children in that school calling 911, talking about gunshots. Even though if you're firing an AR-15, you're going to hear those gunshots. So I don't know if somebody's lying here, or if there's a miscommunication, or if it's all of the above. We're still waiting for all these details to come out. But from what we know so far, it doesn't look good for law enforcement. It really doesn't look like they handled things the way they should have. And that actually plays into the gun debate on many different levels. But in one instance, it does show us that we cannot always count on the government to protect us or to make sure that lives are safe. There has to be other options.
It's pretty darn sad when a fourth grade girl comes out covered in blood and she says, it's not mine, it's my best friend's, I just played dead. It's pretty horrific that our kids, fourth graders that were held hostage, that were in these classrooms, actually knew better how to handle the situation while they were in it than our law enforcement, that the people on the outside, that the authorities for that school did. I mean, what happened? I don't think anything was handled correctly.
Well, this gun-free school zone business, apparently, I believe, Jim, you may know this better than me, but there's 27 states that on some level, teachers are allowed to carry a gun. I mean, why don't we equip them with classes, bioidentical safes, things that are going to help them? Because, calling 911 and waiting for the police to show up, this is a classic example of why that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's the old saying, right? When seconds count, the police are minutes away. And that's not even an indictment on the police. That's just, they can't physically be everywhere. But, and maybe I'm just a know-nothing old country buffoon. I don't know. But it seems to me there was a time when this didn't happen that often. And what I recall from that time? Hunter's education programs with firearm safety. When I was in the 7th grade, I went to school with my mom and a shotgun with a dozen other students in a classroom under an Arkansas Game and Fish wildlife officer's tutelage. And we went over firearm safety, proper hunting protocol. When I was a kid, and in previous generations, kids, at least in rural parts of America, were taught guns, were taught to respect life. Nowadays, society seems to prefer that we either ignore guns or treat them as objects of terror.
Well, that's because they're frightening when you don't understand them. I mean, right, I've been shooting handguns since I was 16. So I don't, it's exactly. Not that I'm fearful of them, but I do respect them. I totally respect a firearm because I know how to handle it. But I think a lot
of people know what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
I think you hit on an important piece there, Lisa. A lot of people are afraid of guns just because they don't really know anything about them. I would say, and I can't prove this, is just my opinion, 70% of the people that argue against guns don't know much about them at all. They don't know much about the debate. They don't know much about guns. I'll tell you, when I first got my pistol, I told my mom about it, and she freaked out because we're from California. We're supposed to be afraid of guns. But now, and the thing is, we've had conversations about it over that time period, and now she's talking about she wants to get a gun. So you're right. The more educated people are, the more respect they have for the firearm, and the less afraid of it they are.
I've warned you all along, Jeff. Be careful; it's contagious.
It is.
When I was in school, and granted that was a bazillion years ago, every truck in the parking lot had a shotgun in the back of the window
with the doors unlocked.
We never thought to use that on anybody else at that school. We never thought to take our aggressions out in that way, shape, or form. I mean, we'd get into fistfights. That would happen. Stuff would happen, but nobody ever walked out of there, took a gun out, and threatened or harmed another human being. So what changed? Something has drastically changed in this country.
Well, we have to look at the psychological makeup and the demographics. Sorry, Jim, the psychological makeup and the demographics of the shooters. I mean, they're 17, they're male. 2/3 of the time it happens in a school that they're familiar with. 1/3 of the time it happens in a school that they're not familiar with. But certainly the school is the place that they want to get back at. And we have to look at that.
With the schools, Jeff and I talked about this recently. We've seen such a rise in people wanting to homeschool since the COVID-19 debacle. But now, I mean, these shootings, they're playing such a prominent role in the media, more so than ever. I mean, what are parents thinking? Are they thinking, shall I just keep sending my child to a school if they genuinely believe that their child is at risk? Or are we going to be seeing a move against sending to public schools, moving into more charter schools, moving into more homeschooling? I mean, I guess in some ways that's a positive outcome of the thing, that people won't be dependent or putting their trust in the public school system that has failed on so many levels, both educationally, spiritually, values-based. And the idea that children can now get a better education at home, I mean, that's coming into its own. And I think these tragedies are a good impetus for that to happen, to make people realize that, well, home's the safest place. For many people, home is the safest place.
Yeah, the data bears out what Mark was saying. Attendance rates and enrollment rates in private schools, up. Enrollment rates in charter schools, up. Homeschooling rates, up. Public school attendance, down. There's a reason for it.
Well, let me just close it out by saying poet Mary Sarton once wrote, quote, "There is some grief so loud they could bring down the sky," end quote. And on that beautiful Texas spring day in Uvalde, the sky did indeed come down. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our productions. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Join us in the member zone, just $17.76 for the year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank DiOrio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.